Welcome back to SnowRunner, guys, and today we are going to be talking about something that was found on the official SnowRunner Discord by people that dug into the Epic servers and apparently discovered that SnowRunner is getting a whole nother year of post-launch support. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, this information was originally surfaced in a public discussion thread in the official SnowRunner Discord, where you would normally discuss things related to the public test server and other, basically, features for the game that are in development or on their way. Now, the specific items that were discussed were a few different things, one being the Year 3 pass itself, the other being a instant reward, and then Seasons 9, 10, 11, and 12, seeing as the Year 2 pass is about to wrap up with Season 8. Now, there is currently no information out there on what these individual phases are going to feature or the type of content that they're going to basically put the player in. However, I find it really interesting that we're now starting to see leaks about a Year 3 pass, being as though a lot of people thought that the Year 2 pass was going to be the last one. A lot of people were saying in the community that, oh, Year 2 pass is probably the last one. After that, it's probably going to be either the game is probably either going to be focused on more by the modders because the post-launch support will probably be over, or there'll be, there will be talk about another game, an upcoming game. But the interesting thing, again, once I go back to this, is with a Year 3 pass, you're talking about so much more content, and the places that we've already gone in this game really raise the questions of where are we going next? Now, obviously, there are more North American regions to explore. There are some regions in Canada that could totally be explored as SnowRunner regions, but I think a really interesting area to explore in this game would also be South America and some of the really sketchy off-roading down there that they do with commercial vehicles, by the way. Both commercial vehicles running through mud, or maybe on the edge of like super tight one-lane cliff roads. Things like that I think would really fit well into the SnowRunner ecosystem. Now, since no locations are officially confirmed yet, what I would really like to do is also go through some of the regions that I thought had the most personality. Now, in terms of some recent-ish regions that I think had a lot of personality, I really liked where they went with Maine. I thought even though Maine was a 2-map region, I thought it had a lot of personality, and especially it brought a lot more life to the game during the night. I mean, especially with the new props that we had and the haunted houses and things like that. We literally saw a creepy character in a window. It was just staring right back at you as you would drive up to this creepy house. And I really wish that the Tennessee region had more of that. I really feel like Tennessee as a region in SnowRunner had a lot of promise, but where I think it fell short was it lacked personality, especially in comparison to regions like, again, for example, Maine, and even Wisconsin as well. That was a really fun region too, because it incorporated a lot of different elements of gameplay into the task line and the quest line, so to speak, right? The line of the career jobs that you would do. Now, also, the interesting thing too about Wisconsin was that it focused directly on the train, right? It introduced a lot of new gameplay dynamics while also maintaining that element of personality. And I think, again, going back to the Tennessee region briefly, I really do think that the Tennessee region could have been a lot better if it had had more personality kind of baked into the way it was delivered, even though it was only a single map region. And say, for example, some of the regions that even dropped with the base game at launch had things like, say, for example, the freaking wolves staring back at you from the woods at night, or some of the early DLC regions in the Year 1 pass that had like a polar bear that you could find. And even on the latest one, which is currently in the public test server on Season 8, there's actually a character, a person that is standing at a bus stop but disappears when you get too close to them. It's like little things like that were just they were missing in the Tennessee region. They really, really were. And it felt like they didn't necessarily put as much time into those little Easter eggs that I think not everybody is going to look for them, but the people that are really going to enjoy them. Now, at this point in the video, I would really like you guys to let me know in the comments down below what regions you would like to see SnowRunner continue to explore as the game progresses, because now that we have this new information, this could potentially mean that the game is going to go to a bunch of new places. Now, interestingly enough, though, there is a chance that these new places could have fictional names as opposed to the real-world region names that we have had in the past, or at least up until Season 8. Now, the reason why that's kind of becoming a little bit of a shift now in the way the game is designed and progressed is because the naming, right? The naming for these places could be potentially affected by current events around the world, and I think that that's why the development team may stick with a slightly more fictional approach to some of the names of the places they portray in the game. That's not to say that these places won't be based on real-world areas, but that they just may have more fictional names. And honestly, so long as the maps and the worlds are made really, really well, the names don't necessarily bother me too much. Like, you could call it whatever you wanted, and as long as it is a engaging, well-rendered, well-put-together game world that pulls you in and immerses you into the experience, I don't really care what its name is. Now, I know that for some players, the name is a big part of what does immerse them in the experience, so if your feeling on that point is different than mine, I completely understand and respect that. But I know that for myself personally, the name of the region itself isn't all that important to me in terms of how it immerses me into the environment. Like, it could be called region number, 19, for example, and if it's the best, most engaging, best looking region ever made with the most interesting tasks and jobs, I don't even care that it's called region number 19 or region number 27. I'm going to keep going back to that one because that one is the one that drew me into the experience more than any of the other ones, regardless of what they were called. Now, at this point, I also want to talk about what this could potentially mean for the series, because it's interesting to me that if the Year 3 pass ends up taking us to all of these different places, then where is the next game going to be based? And it kind of gives me a little bit of and this is entirely 100% speculation. I'm going to put that disclaimer out there right now. This could be, completely like 180 degrees off of where, it could be actually going. Who knows? Because there's obviously no info about the next game yet, but it makes me wonder if once we've gone to all these different locations in SnowRunner, it makes me wonder if the next game in the Runner series, if and when that does happen, is going to be focused less on the places that we go and more on revamping the feel of the game itself. Revamping, and maybe not necessarily revamping the feel of the game, but evolving the feel of the game. Because while SnowRunner is really, really good, and I love the physics system that has evolved in this series from spin tires to MudRunner and to now SnowRunner, the physics system still needs more. It still needs to evolve more. It still needs to grow more, particularly in the way it interacts with rocks and mud. Because I talked about this a lot in a somewhat recent video in MudRunner, where I went back and played MudRunner and compared the interactions between the tires of the vehicle and the surfaces on the ground. And if you really compare SnowRunner and MudRunner up close, SnowRunner has a little bit more of a feeling of your tire almost hovering on a very slight invisible barrier above the ground or the rocks that you're driving over, whereas in MudRunner, that tire felt directly connected to the surface. It felt directly connected to every single surface that you were driving on, regardless of what that surface was, whether it was dirt, grass, mud, rocks. It could have been any one of those things, but in MudRunner, your tires always felt in direct contact with the ground, unless you were, midair after you took a jump, but that's to be expected. So I think that there are, once again, physics improvements that could absolutely be made, and I would honestly argue that I would rather see that in a future Runners game. Like, I would rather see a physics overhaul rather than keep the same physics and look at this cool new place we can go to. So I think that that's a lot more important than going to a lot of new places, and I'm all for going to a million new places in SnowRunner while the game is still being supported post-launch, and then again in the next game in the series, if and when that does happen, that the whole system get a proper ground-up revamp, while of course retaining the core aspects of it that we as players of the Runner series all have come to know and love. And last but not least, I am going to talk about this because there is a small yet vocal part of the community that I think really should be vocal about this, because I honestly feel like this game should have this option, and I've always felt like it should have this option, but yet it doesn't. The ability to use a traditional manual transmission with a clutch, with an H pattern shifter. There are some mod creators that have tried to create, a simulated manual gearbox, but nothing that has gone right down to the actual nuts and bolts of a manual transmission function, and I really think that this game deserves it. I think this series deserves it, and I think that it's something that really should happen either as a update to this game or as a core feature of the next game, if and when that does happen. But that's going to do it for this one, y'all. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you guys next time.